My name is Helena. I'm 63 years old, and I never imagined I'd be confessing this. It all began on a Tuesday morning when I was standing in line at the bank, waiting to ask for a loan. My grandson needed urgent surgery, and my pension barely covered the basics. I was desperate. That's when I heard a deep voice behind me. Faith can move mountains, Donna Helena, but sometimes it also walks into the bank with you. I turned, confused, and there he was, Father Samuel. He'd arrived in our town just 3 months earlier, replacing the retired priest. He wasn't like the others. Younger, maybe in his late 40s, with tired eyes but a kind smile. And that voice, it didn't just speak, it calmed storms. I tried to smile, embarrassed. "How do you know my name?" He chuckled. "Everyone knows Helena, the woman who raised 3 children alone and still bakes the best bread in town." I lowered my eyes. I wasn't used to being seen like that anymore. After my husband passed, I stopped believing in love. In truth, I barely believed in anything. Church became routine. Faith became silence. Life became survival. But that day, something stirred. When I finally reached the teller, they rejected my request. No collateral, no credit. I walked out into the sun, my heart heavy, wondering how to tell my daughter that I'd failed. "Let me walk with you," he said. I didn't answer, but I didn't say no either. And that's how it started. With a simple walk, a shared silence, and a spark I tried hard to ignore. Our town was small, just 3 streets, a central square, and a church that had stood for nearly 100 years. The kind of place where news traveled faster than light, and secrets never stayed hidden for long. I lived in a modest house at the end of Rua das Amorras, surrounded by lemon trees and the distant scent of rain. It wasn't much, but it was mine. My daughter Clara lived 2 blocks away with her boy, Miguel, the boy who needed surgery. Father Samuel began showing up more often, sometimes with groceries, other times with advice, and occasionally just with silence. He helped repaint the old fence around my house and brought me books, philosophy, theology, even poetry. I thought a priest couldn't get too close, I told him once, halfway through painting a wall. He smiled. "I'm not crossing a line. I'm walking beside someone who's carrying a heavy load." I wanted to believe that, but it was getting harder. The town had noticed. Whispers started at the fakery. Eyes lingered at Mass. Even my friend Doris, who had known me for 40 years, pulled me aside one morning. "You're dancing too close to fire, Helena." "He's just helping." Is that what you tell yourself before you fall? That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about my late husband's voice, about the vows I once made, about the emptiness I'd filled with duty and routine, and now about this man who made me feel seen. One afternoon, as we sat in silence beneath the fig tree in my backyard, he turned to me and said, "People forget that even Jesus was scandalous to his time. He healed on the Sabbath. He touched the untouchables. He loved with truth." I held my breath. Something was changing. It was a Sunday when the first real confrontation happened. After Mass, as people gathered near the steps of the church, Father Samuel approached me to hand over a bag of medicines for Miguel. He smiled warmly, like always, but this time, it was too much for Clara. She grabbed my arm firmly, pulling me aside. "Mother, do you realize what people are saying? That you're spending too much time with him. That it's not just charity anymore." I froze. My daughter's voice trembled, not with anger, but with fear. She was ashamed. "I'm not doing anything wrong," I replied quietly. You raised me with values. You taught me about boundaries. Are they all gone now?" Her words pierced deeper than she knew. I walked away without another word. But that night, the silence in my house was unbearable. That same week, the bishop paid a surprise visit to the parish. A formal inspection, they said. But everyone knew what it was. They'd heard the whispers. Father Samuel seemed calm. He kept serving the poor, visiting the elderly, delivering sermons with fire and compassion. But I saw the weight in his shoulders growing heavier each day. "I don't regret caring for you, Helena," he told me one evening, under the dim light of the porch. "But if this costs me my place here, I need to know if it's worth it." I didn't answer. My hands trembled as I poured tea. I was too scared of the answer. Then came the letter. My request for emergency aid from a charity fund had been denied. No help. No more options. My grandson's surgery would have to wait. I wept on the kitchen floor, clutching the rejection slip, whispering the only thing I could. "Lord, why do you give love only to let it cost us everything?" The following days were filled with tension. I stopped going to the morning market. People didn't say much, but their eyes did. Judging, calculating, some pitied me. Others mocked me in silence. At the church, things grew colder. The bishop had left, but his shadow lingered. Father Samuel's sermons became more cautious. He avoided meeting my eyes in public, but at night, he still came. Not every evening, just the ones where the silence screamed too loud for either of us to bear alone. One night, I found him sitting by the fig tree, his Bible open on his lap, but unread. "You shouldn't be here," I whispered. "I know. We're giving them more reason to talk. Let them talk." His voice was firm, but his hand shook. He closed the Bible, looked up at me, and said, "There's a verse. Luke 14:26. If anyone comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, even their own life, such a person cannot be my disciple." Do you know what it means? I nodded slowly. It means sometimes love demands sacrifice, even of what we hold most sacred. He nodded back, but we said nothing more. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I walked through my small house, every photo on the wall whispering pieces of the past. My wedding, my children, Christmases long gone, every memory pulling me backward, and yet something inside kept pushing forward. The next morning, Clara came by with Miguel. She was still cold, but seeing her son run to my arms melted part of that wall between us. "Doctor says we've got one more month. Then it'll be too risky," she said. My heart pounded. 1 month, no money, no miracles, and a love that could ruin everything. It was a Tuesday evening when everything changed. I was washing the kitchen floor when I heard loud knocking on the front door. 3 sharp hits, followed by silence. When I opened it, 2 men stood there, one in a suit, the other holding a folder. "We're from the Diocese Review Board," the man in the suit said. "Is Father Samuel here?" My breath caught. "No," I replied. "Why would he be here?" He ignored the question. "We need to speak with him urgently." They left a sealed envelope addressed to him. I didn't open it, but the red stamp on the front said enough. "Urgent. Final warning." Later that night, Samuel appeared, his face pale, his eyes hollow. "They're removing me," he said without even sitting down, "transferring me to a remote parish, far away. Effective immediately." The ground beneath me vanished. "For what?" I whispered. for what they think is happening, for not keeping proper boundaries. And is it happening? I asked, tears building in my throat. He looked at me. If you mean love, Helena. Yes, I love you. But I haven't broken my vows. Not yet. That word, yet, burned in the air like fire. He paced the room, then finally turned to me. I need to leave tomorrow, but tonight, I had to see you one last time. We sat in silence, like we had so many times before. Except this silence was full of heartbreak. Before leaving, he took my hands in his and said something I'll never forget. God tests the heart, Helena, and sometimes he asks us to give up what we want most to prove where our faith lies. But even in that, he never stops loving us. He kissed my forehead and walked out the door. And just like that, he was gone. The next morning, the sun rose like any other, but everything felt different. His absence filled every corner of my home. The fig tree, the quiet porch, the teacups left untouched. I wandered through the rooms like a ghost, replaying every word from the night before. People in town started talking louder now. Without him here, they felt free to speculate. I became the subject of pity, of gossip, of judgment. Clara stopped bringing Miguel. I could see the pain in her eyes whenever we passed on the street. She didn't need to say anything. I knew she blamed me. And maybe I blamed myself too. At night, I prayed. But the words came slow. Not because I didn't believe anymore, but because I didn't know what to ask for. Forgiveness, strength, a miracle. One evening, I sat at the church alone. The benches were empty. The air smelled of candle wax and old wood. And I spoke aloud, trembling, Lord, if this was your test, did I fail? Tears spilled freely. That's when old Father Joachim, the retired priest, approached. I hadn't seen him in months. You didn't fail, Helena, he said, sitting beside me. You followed your heart, but you didn't cross the line. That matters. He held my hand, gentle but firm. God doesn't punish love. He shapes it. Sometimes he takes it from us to refine it, not to destroy it. I wept again. A few days later, I received a letter. It wasn't from Father Samuel. It was from the charity organization I'd written to weeks ago. They'd changed their decision. An anonymous donor had paid the full amount for Miguel's surgery. All of it. My knees gave out right there on the kitchen floor. I knew it was him. The hospital called 2 days later. Miguel's surgery was scheduled. Clara and I held each other in the waiting room, both silent, both broken, but standing together again. It was a long operation. Hours passed. I clutched my rosary so tightly my hands cramped. When the doctor finally came out, he smiled. Successful. He's going to be just fine. Clara collapsed into my arms, sobbing. I felt something deep inside me shift, like a wound closing, little by little. Afterward, she turned to me and whispered, I'm sorry, Mama. I judged you too harshly. I nodded, swallowing tears. We were both afraid. We just showed it differently. Weeks passed. Miguel recovered, and Clara visited more often. People in town softened. The stares stopped. Life moved forward. But Father Samuel never returned. I sent one letter, just one. Not to ask anything, just to tell him Miguel was safe. That I was grateful. That I understood. He never replied. But I didn't need him to. I started volunteering at the church again, helping with the food drives, organizing shelves in the back, folding bulletins. Father Joachim took me under his wing. You've walked through fire, he said once, placing his hand on my shoulder. Now you can lead others through it. And somehow, he was right. I no longer walked with shame. I walked with purpose. I was still Helena, still 63, still the grandmother with calloused hands and a heart full of scars. But I was also someone who had loved deeply, someone who had chosen faith, even when it broke her heart. And that love, even though it cost me dearly, gave Miguel another chance at life. That was worth everything. Months passed. Spring arrived, painting the town with soft colors and warm winds. Miguel was running again, playing in the dirt, chasing birds, laughing like nothing had ever happened. Claire and I had grown closer. There were still quiet spaces between us, but now they were filled with peace, not tension. We didn't need to talk about the past. We simply lived the present, grateful, humbled, and stronger. One Sunday, as I was arranging the altar flowers, I noticed a stranger walk in, tall, thin, wore a dusty coat and carried a small suitcase. He sat in the last pew and bowed his head. I couldn't see his face, but something in me stirred. I kept working, heart pounding faster. After Mass, Father Joachim approached with a curious smile. "You saw him, didn't you?" "Who?" "The man who sat alone in the back. He asked if you still came to church." My hands trembled. "Did he say his name?" "He didn't have to." I left the church quickly, heart racing. The streets were quiet. The fig tree outside my house rustled in the wind, like it remembered something. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the window, tea untouched, wondering what I would say if I ever saw him again. Would I cry? Would I smile? Would I ask why he disappeared? Or would I thank him for loving me the only way he could? Deep down, I knew something was coming. Not a fairy tale, not a scandal, but something real. Something with weight, with cost, and with grace. The kind of ending only God Himself could write.